Hello artists! Today we are going to paint the background of our jellyfish painting. So what we're gonna need today is we're gonna need some clean water, our watercolors. I have my number 10 big brush, and I also have, this is different, a little cup of salt. This is just table salt. You don't have to put it in a cup. If you have a normal salt shaker with the really fine grain salt, that's gonna work great. So let's get started. Here we go. What we're gonna do is simply activate the paints that we want and the colors that we need. But first we look at our jellyfish and we decide what colors are gonna look good. So I have an orangey, yellowy, red jellyfish. See that? This side of the color wheel. So if I want to be really clever about making my colors pop out of the page, I'll use the opposite colors for the background in the water. And no one says your water has to be just blue. I'm going to be adding purples. I'm going to be adding greens. And so we're going to just kind of see what happens and let it blend. Now, you guys know that the paper is like a sponge. And what we have to do in order to be very careful is we want to outline our jellyfish first with clean water. And you can see the water already absorbing into the paper where it's starting to get gray. We want that. That's good. That means that when we do set some paint on it later, it's just going to sit on top of that and we can move the paint around more easily. Oh, but we also need to activate our paints. So let's put some nice clean water in our paints right now. Get them nice and wet, get them going. You can't see it on the screen, but I'm putting it in the blues. I'm putting my water in the purples and in the greens. Okay, just adding clean water everywhere. All right, so in my paint tray now, I've got water in all of those areas of those colors. So that's going to activate. That means that the water is seeping into the paint, and the water that I put in there is now just going to become the color of the paint instead of me digging and scratching down into the oval, because I don't want to do that. I don't want to lose a lot of my paint by doing that. All right, let's continue with the water. So here we go. Remember, outline. You need a lot of water for this project, which makes sense. It's a jellyfish. Jellyfish are 90 to 95% water. Is that remarkable? A human being is between 60 and 70% water. So their ratio of water to their mass is definitely different than what we deal with. And they have to be very fluid. So it makes sense we're using a lot of water and watercolors to make this piece of art. All right, so I'm gonna start here on the top. I am gonna work my colors around, and we're gonna have to follow some rules. Here are the rules. Number one, you have to get your paint your paper really wet first. Number two, when you put your colored paint water on the picture, you immediately have to add clean water on top of it to help it spread around. And then when you add another color, it'll bleed into it like tie-dye. It's gonna look so cool. And rule number three is, while it's still very, very wet, you're gonna add some salt. And it has to happen fast, and it has to happen where there's really heavy amounts of paint, where you have a lot of paint. Okay, are you ready to see how this happens? All right, remember, you want your paper really wet. So anywhere that I see the white coming through, I'm adding some more water to make it a little bit more gray, because I really want this to work. All right, here we go. Starting with, I'm gonna grab some of this purpley water right here. And as soon as I do that, I don't make a line, I don't want stripes, I just keep adding some water. So see how that's kind of bleeding around on the water that I have on there? So I quickly go to another color, add water to that, and do you see how that's sort of mixing? You get that mix in there and that flow. Then pull some of that paint down and around to where you need it to be, to the edges of this area. See that? Keep adding water, and then you can go on to your next color. The trick is just keep adding water. The water will move it around. It'll blend it into other colors. You have to work fast because it is a race against time that it takes for this paint to absorb into the paper. And you can see I'm not making distinct shapes or anything with the paint. I'm just trying to get paint onto the paper. And I'm not really being super picky about my colors either. I know I'm using a certain area of colors, the cool colors, but I'm not particularly picky about what I'm doing. Uh-oh, I dripped on that. Now what that's gonna do, in case you're curious, that is gonna leave a dot. It is gonna leave a dot. But I'm just gonna chalk it up to as part of the jellyfish. All right, this part is done. I look at it, I say, is there anything else I'd wanna do? Yeah, I didn't like that big green smudge right up there, so I'm just adding a little blue, adding a little blue. All right, now quickly, while it is really wet, I'm gonna grab a pinch of my salt. I go right on top of this really wet area as fast as I can so that the water that's there is gonna pick up the salt. There we go, and that's it. Now you leave it alone. It's done. Definitely don't go over that with your brush because salt crystals will get in the hairs. Then those hairs will go into your paint, drop salt into your paint and ruin your paints. So we definitely don't want to do that. So your job now, continue working down your jellyfish. I will, shift this up a little bit. I'm gonna now work on the next section, then I will shift it again and I will work on the next section. All right, so here we go. Have fun painting. I can't wait to see your finished jellyfish.